Welcome to Freed on Business. He grew up in South Florida, has been in business here since the early 90s, and has closed over $3 billion in deals. He's seen it all. He always has an opinion, and he's always ready to share it. Informed, entertaining, and connected, he has his finger on the pulse of South Florida's business community. He's Jim Freed, and this is Freed on Business.
We have a really special, terrific Freed on Business show for you today. It's a show that I've been really working a lot to put together. Before we get started, I want to thank Marcus Anderson from the University of Miami for helping us put this together. We're going to have Dr. Giselle Guerra on. She is the person that heads up the Transplant Center. We're going to talk about what's been going on with the kidney transplants. I want to thank her personally for what she's done for Vivian and the rest of our community. And we're going to have a really great, wonderful show. So stick with us. I want to always just thank our sponsors for well over a decade, Warren Henry Automotive. I want to thank Larry, Warren, Ismet, and the rest of the team over there, Jack, Gio. They're all terrific. Eric, for over a decade, they've been sponsoring our show, and we want to thank them so very much. Hold on while I get rid of all the reflections there. Mr. Mendoza is probably having a heart attack with all the reflections. Much better, right, Mr. Mendoza? And so without any further ado, I want to bring on Dr. Giselle Guerra. Dr. Guerra, welcome to another edition of Freed on Business. There she is. Hey there.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you as a member of our community. Why don't we start off by telling people a little bit about what you do at the University of Miami and the Transplant Center?
Excellent. So I happen to be a transplant nephrologist. So in layman's term, a kidney doctor. I take care of patients before they go for transplant and afterwards. And I happen to head up as the medical director of the kidney transplant program, as well as the medical director for the Transplant Institute here as well. So we have lots of patients in need, and I'm happy to say I'm one of the doctors that takes care of so many people here.
And I want to thank also Dr. David Roth, who was the actual person that worked with us as well. I guess he's sort of emeritus now, but I see him occasionally. Dr. David Roth, I love that guy. It's the way he talks. I'm imitating him. So, Dr. Guerra, tell us a little bit about the center, how long it's been open, how many people have helped, how many people you've helped.
So the first transplant that was done here was a kidney transplant, and it started in the 1970s. And we are happy to say we're one of the few transplant centers in the United States that does all solid organ transplants. So we have from lung transplant, heart transplant, kidney transplant, intestinal transplants, pancreas transplants, liver transplants, you name it, we've done it. In fact, there's individuals that have received up to 8 transplants at a given point in time. So over the last decade, we actually formed the Institute here. And by forming the Institute, we were able to expand and actually become more innovative, and we've been able to transplant more individuals that have been waiting for a transplant. So in the last decade, I would say more than 7,000 individuals were transplanted. So that's a staggering amount to even conceptualize, but it's even better when we know how much those individuals have gone on to give into the community.
Well, that's like 2 a day. That's wild.
It's crazy.
Very busy. Now, I know that that organ transplantation is a hurry up and wait kind of thing. Vivian, my wife, got a kidney transplant. Thank you so much for that. We waited 4 years. I waged a social media campaign that finally found us the donor. Quit my job, did all kinds of things. The community turned out and supported my wife and I, which I could never give enough thanks for. But there's a lot of people that don't have a Jim Freed. What is the typical process that somebody can I don't want to say look forward to, expect if they get diagnosed needing a transplant of any solid organ? I guess kidneys a little bit easier because everybody has 2 kidneys, one to keep and one to share. But what's the real process? What can somebody expect when they get diagnosed?
So I think the first thing, and I'm actually very excited that you're taking the time to let me talk about this. I think there's not enough education about the importance of when to refer a person for transplant. You want to capture these individuals when they're still in a good enough state, not when they're in their dire need, almost to the point that they're at the death's door. Because transplantation requires a big effort physically and mentally to endure. So I think the first thing that we need to make clear is how to refer the patient for transplantation, whether it's here at the Miami Transplant Institute or to your closest transplant center. I think it's very important that doctors and patients become advocates of themselves to ask about transplantation. So for kidney in particular, you do not have to be on dialysis. In fact, your outcomes are much better if you never go on dialysis and you get a transplant before. The kidneys not only last longer, but also you're in a better state of health, so your patient survival increases. So you could go on the list once your kidney function is 20%, and you could receive a living donor transplant once your kidney function is under 20% as well. But the goal should be never to get to the point that you need to go on dialysis. Now, if you're on dialysis, because sometimes these things happen unexpectedly, and you may feel sick from one day to the next, and unfortunately you might get that abrupt news that you need to go on dialysis in order to clear your body of the toxins, then at that point you should be referred immediately for transplantation. The quicker you get a transplant, also, the better the results will be as well. So less time on dialysis should be the goal. Unfortunately, depending where you live in the United States, the time that it takes to get an organ, to get a kidney transplant will change. In the state of Florida, the average time is about 3 to 4 years. However, if you are a patient that has received lots of blood transfusions, or you've been a woman with multiple pregnancies, or you've actually been transplanted already once before or multiple times, it becomes more challenging because your immune system is active and you develop antibodies. So there's a challenge to find the right organ for you so you don't reject. So the time on the list might actually increase if you fit any of those scenarios. So again, you got to be referred sooner versus later. Now, for the other organs, it's also just as important, because the longer the sicker you get, the harder and the faster you're actually going to go for a transplant. The priority is based on how sick you are, whether you need a liver transplant or a lung transplant or a heart transplant. There's specific scores that we look at, and you go up on the waiting list the sicker you are. But again, the challenge is that you cannot be so sick that you won't be in optimal shape to get a transplant. So there's a very fine line. Depending on the organ type, the variation in time frame changes. And depending how sick you are and how high on the list you are, then obviously there'll be less time. There's people that, because they're so sick, depending on their organ failure, and they're so high on the list that it could be within a couple of days that they get a transplant. But again, they're in a very dangerous time frame. And that's why our goal here at the MTI, and I think hopefully most transplant centers, is never to let anybody die waiting on the list.
Wow, that's a very, very significant statement. So let's go back and unwind a little bit of that. So if somebody knows that they have a declining kidney function and they get to 25%, they should be polling their friends and people they know.
Yes, we do advocate. Again, we will not transplant them if their kidney function is above 20%, and they will not go on the deceased donor list. It's basically a statement that has been determined a law across the United States. You have to have a 20% or less kidney function to go on the deceased donor list. But of course, we don't want to put them at such an early state. But if your kidney function is deteriorating and you're at 25%, and every time you go get labs, the creatinine starts getting slightly worse every time, that at that point in time, you need to make the move, speak to your family and friends about possibly finding a donor for you.
Now, what is it that you're trying to match when you're matching a donor? Because when my wife needed her kidney transplant, I thought that it would be really easy. And it turned out that we probably hold the record for the number of people tested at Jackson and across the country, actually, because we had people testing all across the country. We had one person fly in from Alaska, another person that saw us on TV in Houston and asked. So what is the the process, the expectation? How can people find somebody? What is that all? Now you called all your friends, no one matches, or that they say they won't match. Nobody in your family matches, or they're pre-diabetic or something. What's somebody's next step in trying to find a living donor, and why would they want a living donor versus a donor that is not living?
So I think there's several things that we need to tackle with the conversation piece we're having right now, and all of it is important. So I think it's really important that whoever's listening to this takes the time and take notes on this, because it's going to be crucial either for themselves or their loved ones to make the proper decision on what the next step is. So there is a difference between living donation and deceased donation. The only organs that you're able to donate receive from a living donor is liver and kidney. So if you heart, lung, all the other ones, you have to go on the deceased donor list. Now, in liver is a little bit different than the kidney transplant. If you get a living liver donor transplant, the advantages is because of timeliness, and also many times because of size and certain conditions that you're trying to meet and capture. With a kidney transplant, there are multiple studies throughout the years that have shown, and evidence-based, there's nothing like evidence-based in the medical field to make the best determination what the best treatment is out there, is to get a living donor transplant. Those kidneys last twice as long. So right now, we have medicine has advanced, and with the immunosuppression that we're currently using, right now the average what we call kidney transplant survival is about 10 to 12 years from a deceased donor. But for a living donor, is twice as long as obviously the patient is taking care of themselves and they're being compliant with their medications and following the instructions of the doctors. So it is a complete advantage to receive a living donor transplant. The other thing is there's timeliness. You could actually plan. It's an elective surgery. So again, if you're trying to avoid going on dialysis, which has the best benefit, then obviously having a living donor, you time it so you never go on dialysis. Deceased donors, you're just waiting on the list. So at any given point in time, your health may deteriorate, or your loved one's health may deteriorate, and you have to go on the list. And so that window you missed of that optimal time frame for having better graft and patient survival. Now, the other thing is we could customize the immunosuppression if it's from a living donor. So there is a clear advantage across the board for a multitude of reasons that living donation, if you're able to find a donor, that's the way to go. However, if you don't have one, it doesn't mean that the world's coming to an end. Transplantation is the best treatment for many individuals. So whether it's deceased or living donor, it's still worthwhile going through the transplant evaluation process, having those doctors make a determination if this is the best treatment for you. And if that's the case, going on the deceased donor list if you can never find a living donor. But clearly, as a doctor, I'm always going to advocate what's best for my patients, and it is receiving a living donor transplant.
Now, I know a lot of people whose names are on the buildings over at Jackson and Baptist and Mount Sinai. What advantage do they have on that deceased donor list that somebody that just works at BurgerFi has?
Once you go on the deceased donor list, it doesn't matter. A patient is a patient. First of all, no patient should be considered a number. So that's very important. Though we deal with, like I said, thousands of patients, it's not a number. Everyone is an individual. Everyone has value in this world and has families that are being taken care of. So it's really important that the patients understand that they have to advocate for themselves, just like we are advocating for them. They go on the list, and the list varies. It's a national list. And I actually tell my patients, if you could go to different transplant centers, go ahead, get on the list. Give yourself every advantage possible to receive that organ. Don't limit yourself to one individual center. Obviously, the one closest to your home is going to be the best one for you, because that's where you're going to get the care. But really, I tell patients all the time, They should never feel offended. Oh, what about if I go to another center? Of course, that every patient should give themselves the best advantage. And if you list yourself in different transplant centers, that just increases your chances of getting an offer. Even within the same local area, there's different transplant centers. And I tell them, every transplant center, yes, we have a list and that we follow, and we have our own organ procurement organization where within a 250 nautical mile radius, those transplant centers have priority to get those organs. But the reality is, I get organs from California, Texas, Illinois, Philadelphia. I get organs from all over the country because, again, every single transplant center has a different practice. We are an aggressive transplant center here at the Miami Transplant Institute because we work as a team, and it's a multidisciplinary team. So we're used to taking care of very complex cases where they get turned down in other transplant centers because we are able to do a multitude of transplants at the same time. So it is very common practice that some individuals may not only require a kidney transplant, they may require a combination of lung and kidney transplant, or a liver and kidney transplant. And some individuals even require more, like those that require multivisceral transplants that may include even the kidney. And those individuals actually get up to 8 organs at the same time. So as an aggressive transplant center that knows how to deal with very complex cases, we get offers from all over the country where other institutes may not feel as comfortable transplanting some of those organs. But as a result of that, we really depend on this team to work together to make it happen and give our patients the best results. And again, go back to our philosophy, never to have a patient die waiting for a transplant.
So let's talk about one of the things that we personally experienced. We had what I call a false alarm. It was right after one of the hurricanes. We got called by your team. We went to Jackson. We got all ready. This was, I guess, from an accident victim, and it was being transported over. And you said, maybe, but let me watch and watch. And eventually you said that the kidney wasn't good for transplantation. What happens? Why does that happen?
So actually, that's an excellent point that you're bringing up. And actually, it's a great way to set expectations, not only for our patients, but also for their loved ones that are taking care of them. There are many times, like I said, organs are being flown throughout the country. And as a result of that, when they get here, we actually do special things to these kidneys to make proper assessments to see how well are they going to function. We do place them on specific pumps that actually help to perfuse those kidneys, and they give us a good indication of how well those kidneys are going to work once we transplant the patients. So sometimes when we put them on those special machines that are flushing those kidneys for us and they're perfusing better, it's a good indication that maybe this kidney may not work the way we want it to work. And the important thing is that, like we say, we have a philosophy. We don't want patients to die waiting for a transplant, but we also want to give them the best organ possible so they could have the most success. It's not about quantity, but quality. So could we do the transplant? Of course we can. But the idea is not to do the transplant, is to give the patient the best chance of life and quality of life. So if the organ doesn't look good to us, it doesn't matter that, could we go to surgery and do it? That's not the point. We want them to do well after the transplant so that organ lasts as long as possible.
This is a great spot for us to take a break. After the break, I'm going to ask you how the people feel once they get the kidney transplant, and do they live a normal life? We'll be right back with Dr. Giselle Guerra, the head of organ transplantation at the University of Miami Medical Center. Did I say it right, Dr. Guerra?
Yeah, the Miami Transplant Institute. I'm the medical director here.
She rocks. She really does. And look how kind she is. That's the person you want in your corner when you're facing a decision like this. Mr. Mendoza, it's yours. Oh, he did that just for me. He even put where I live on there. In fact, it was all where I live. I didn't even realize how organized the sailboats were out in the bay. They look helter-skelter to me. Hey, everybody. One group that's not helter-skelter is our friends at Warren Henry. I want to thank Eric Day, Larry Zinn, Maytel Stark, Jack, Gio, Ismet, the whole team over there that makes my wife and I feel like gold, my mom too. And remember, whenever you're looking to buy or lease a car, you want to get every advantage that you can. Oh, and they're also big supporters of the National Kidney Foundation. You want to get every advantage that you can. That's why you have to check out Warren Henry, Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, Jaguar, and Lincoln up at 151st and Biscayne. They've got their new store in South Dade for Land Rover, Range Rover. They've got their store in Gainesville that sells Audis. And of course, the store in the Keys, Key West, sells them all. What do all these great cars have in common? Well, they all come with the Warren Henry Advantage, a long list of services. There's a long list of services that range from, of course, the service loaner. If you have to leave your car overnight, you make a reservation with Maytal. So make sure you get a beautiful, clean loaner car. They make sure that if you lose your keys or scrape up your rims, they'll take care of you, treat you like gold. They'll guarantee that you're getting the best price on your car for lease or purchase. They'll make sure you're getting the best value on your trade-in. They'll give you 3 days to determine whether or not you like your car. You can give it back. Nobody really does that because they're tremendous cars. So join me, my mom, my beautiful wife, Vivian, lots and lots of our friends. And before I'm done, I'll even convince Dr. Guerra. We're all members of the Warren Henry family. You should be too. Always the best price, always the best service, always Warren Henry. So how do I live my life? Well, I live it like the rabbis here in town said when I was running for city commission. I live my life focused on my wife, and I take care of my wife, and that's the way I take care of my clients too. And we're talking today about what my wife went through and what I went through with her and how we survived the kidney disease and the kidney transplant. But reach out to me. Your business certainly isn't going to ever be life and death like that. If it is, you know how I'll respond. But I work with families from across the country, across the world, family offices, institutions, high net worth investors. I come up with very creative ideas like my new Web 3.0 financing. Give me a call if you want to learn more about that. But we're helping families from all over the state and the U.S. finance their real estate transactions in this time when it's tough to find financing. We're creative. We know who's got it and who doesn't, how to price it, and how to get your deal positioned so that it has the best likelihood of success. So reach out to me, DM me, email me, and remember, whenever you call me, it's always all about you.
Welcome back to Freedom Business. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Jim Freed or at Freedom Business, and on Instagram at Jim Freed1. Now, back to your host, Jim Freed.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another great edition of Freedom Business. I'm joined by Dr. Giselle Guerra. She runs the Transplant Center over at the University of Miami in Jackson. She helped me save my wife's life. I can't thank her enough. She's a wonderful, kind, generous person who protected us and was there with us every step of the way. Her and her team are magnificent. Mr. Mendoza, where is my guest? What's going on here? Oh, there she is. So Dr. Guerra, I and many other people had a misconception. And that was once the person gets their organ, that person lives a free and carefree life that's easy. And it's just like before any of this stuff happened. Now, as a side note, my wife collapsed. We found her basically moments from death on the floor. We didn't know what was the matter. They gave her the tests. They found out she needed a kidney transplant. Before I even got to her, they put in a access point and started dialysizing her. I walked in, I kissed her forehead. She looked up at me and she said, "I can see clearly now." And that's our new song, the reggae song, "I Can See Clearly Now." But it was a very momentous moment for me. I looked at her this morning, asleep like my little angel, and was so thrilled that she was there beside me, but the recovery from these transplants is nonlinear. I know a lot of people that have had different reactions to the medication, had to change their diet, had to change their lifestyle, could do this, couldn't do this, and then COVID came along and shut the door on everything for my wife and I. But Dr. Guerra, in the grand scheme of things, pre-COVID or now post-COVID, what can somebody expect when they take these drugs, and what does the impact of drugs have on them? Because after all, they are suppressing the body's natural functions.
So the expectation is, and we tell all our patients, is they're going to always have organ disease. And it's really important that they understand that, because it's not like you're going in, ordering a meal, and then going through the drive-through and getting your meal, and that's the end of that story. You have to recover from the surgery, but more importantly is you have to adapt to a new sense of being, where you have to take medications for the rest of your life so you don't reject the organ. These medications are very strong in the sense of they're on purpose, intentionally bringing down your immune system to fool it so you won't reject the organ. But when that happens, you obviously are predisposing yourself to other factors, such as infections and even malignancy cancers. So that's why you need to have such close follow-up by the doctors that know how and have been trained to take care of individuals like this, because it affects your whole entire body. And you want to make sure that you're being properly looked after, because it will affect how you feel. Some patients do complain of some of the immunosuppressive medications even upsetting their stomachs. So we have to make a dose adjustments, but you can never come off the medication. Even if you're feeling good and like $100, $100 million, and it's years out, you'll be like, oh, I'm fine. And you start skipping one medication here and there. That is a big problem, because your body still will know that those organs didn't belong to you, and you can reject. And over time, when that does happen, you could ultimately lose the organs and end up back in organ failure. So it's very important that the patients are properly looked after, and that's why we're so meticulous about getting labs, seeing the patients in clinics, and making sure they're taking the medications according to plan.
So I remember when my wife got out of surgery and she was lying in the bed and she just woke up, and I kissed her forehead and I asked her how she was feeling. And she goes, well, everybody's getting to know each other inside.
That's very cute that she said that.
They're making introductions.
They're getting to meet each other.
You know, you can see my face. I'm still suffering from PTSD from this whole thing, and I'm just the husband. My wife is an amazing superstar who gives me incredible inspiration every single day, as do anybody who's gone through this. I want to ask you another question now, and that's the role that insurance plays in this. We talked earlier about how my wife got more people tested than anybody else on the planet. That Jackson actually called me and said to please stop sending them people because they couldn't test them all. Well, one thing that people don't realize is insurance is only going to pay for one person at a time to get tested.
So the way it works out, every organ is a little bit different. So you must have insurance. Let's begin with that. You cannot go for transplantation unless if you don't have insurance, even if it includes just Medicaid. So we do in the United States, as long as you're covered. In fact, most patients with end-stage renal disease have Medicare because they end up on dialysis and the government covers it through Medicare. So the majority of kidney patients will have at least Medicare coverage. But there are some individuals that are less fortunate and may have Medicaid, and we do accept Medicaid. But it's actually important to know living donation is not covered with Medicaid. It is covered with Medicare and it is covered with private insurances, but Medicaid actually doesn't cover it. And so we do make some exceptions to follow up and actually test living donors if you're part of the Dade County area. So here at the Miami Transplant Institute, Miami is one of the largest public healthcare systems in the United States, and is the public hospital for Miami-Dade County. So we actually cover individuals and make exceptions sometimes for living donors that are residents of the Miami-Dade County area. But by and large, you have to have Medicare or private insurance in order to be evaluated. And the main reason behind that is you have to have coverage. It's not only about the surgery. you have to have coverage for the medications, and you will be on lifelong medications. And that's the importance of that. If you don't have insurance, unfortunately, if you're illegal, those are things that are challenging. And though we want to help everybody, the problem is not the actual surgery. Even if we do things pro bono and we actually cover the surgery, the problem will come is that you will not have the coverage to cover the medications. And without those medications, those organs won't survive. That's the importance of having insurance. So I think it's very important that patients know that. Living donors are covered by the recipient's insurance. Initially, like you were saying, we do evaluate many living donors, and we pick one because that's the one that's going to go for surgery, have the kidney removed, or in some cases the liver, part of their liver removed. And so that actually, until that one individual is chosen, each of the transplant centers have what we call an acquisition fund. So our kidney acquisition fund is the one that covers all the testing of all those organs, all those donors. So Vivian was so lucky, and she's one of the rare exceptions that had so many individuals wanting to donate to her. But there are other individuals that just may have one individual or a couple individuals. So again, we do test all the patients. But it is covered by the transplant center until the one individual is chosen to be the right match and passes all tests, both medical and physical, but more importantly, psychological too. They have to be in the right state of mind to be able to donate. So once we make and choose that living donor, then it gets covered by the recipient's insurance. And it will cover complications just in case, even though that's a rare occasion that happens. But I did actually want to say about the living donor, they are the most special individuals. Any individual that wants to donate, just the fact that they want to donate, it is staggering. And they deserve a lot of credit and admiration. They are heroes to many individuals, not only the ones that they want to donate to and try to save. They're actually saving all and giving chances to all the individuals that are on the deceased donor list. Because if we have one less individual on the deceased donor list, that gives all the other individuals a chance to find an organ. So they're really helping thousands of individuals that are waiting for transplant. So they should be honored, and we should give them special care all the time because what they do is exceptional. And I do want to let people know that if you're a living donor, you get chosen to be a living donor because it's the right thing for you. There are many times that we will evaluate 10 individuals before we pick that one individual, because we want to make sure here at the Miami Transplant Institute and most transplant centers that this is something safe for the donor to do. They could live with one kidney, but we want to make sure we give them the best chance possible to do so.
We're going to take a quick break, then we're going to come back and we're going to talk briefly about, directly again to the kidney donors and what they can expect, and a little bit of a wrap up with how people can get involved through Marcus Anderson with the Transplant Center. So, Mr. Mendoza, take it away. We'll come right back and close with Dr. Guerra with the most important messages of all. All right, everybody. I want to thank our sponsors at Warren Henry. They've been with the show for well over a decade. And during the time of the kidney transplant, their Supercar Saturday events was a safe place for me to go. I would speak to Warren, especially their and Robert. They're members of the National Kidney Foundation, and they always gave me hope and support. Larry, of course, the rest of the team over there. This is a very difficult show for me to do. I apologize if I'm losing it a little bit. But I want to thank our friends at Warren Henry. I usually go through their laundry list of things and everything else. But the most important thing you need to know is that when you do business with somebody, that those people care. And Warren Henry, through many activities, you've seen us interview their, I call them the Heisman Trophy Award winners. You've seen me interview their service people. You've seen me interview them all, and you've seen me talk to them. And the one thing that I can tell you that runs through all of the interviews and all the people that I know there is that they care about our community and they care about you. So no stuff about all the things about the Warren Henry Advantage. You guys know that by now. You know that they return your car if you don't like it. You know that my mom goes there, my friends go there, but beautiful, my lovely wife Vivian goes there. But really, the bottom line is that you should join me and my friends in supporting a local business person who's very intertwined with our community, who means the world to my family and I, and if given the chance, can provide your family with the same level of comfort. I was actually going through some of the old things I got from them, and when I was cleaning out my storage thing, I found something from them, and it said it's always, whenever you work with them, it's always, they try to make it all about you. And this is from like a decade ago. So it's really nice to know that I have value system alignment with my friends at Warren Henry. My family, we love them dearly for everything they've done for us. Give them the chance. They'll do it for you too. Always the best price, always the best service, always Warren Henry. Well, you're learning all about me. If you'd like somebody like me on your team, I know a lot about real estate. I know a lot of people in real estate, and I know how to get things done. I know what's important in life, and I know what you can pass along and not do because it's not necessarily essential. I tell people that the most important person in your life is the person that you decide to spend your life with. When something happens to that person, you'll do anything you possibly can to save their life, and that's what I did with my wife. Granted, a real estate transaction is not like saving somebody's life, but many times people call me and ask me to save their for them, and I do it. I know who to call. A lot of times I can do it with one phone call, which I just did for a friend of mine who's looking to build a project. In any event, reach out to me, DM me. If you'd like to affiliate with a person that gets it done in the kindest way, then let's do business. Remember, my personal brand is that I self-actualize by helping other people achieve their dreams and goals. I do that by helping them solve their problems and bringing them peace of mind. And remember, whenever you reach out to me and call me, it's always all about you.
Welcome back to Freed on Business. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Jim Freed or at Freed on Business, and on Instagram at Jim Freed1. Now, back to your host, Jim Freed.
Hi, we're here with Dr. Giselle Guerra, who is an angel in our community. She runs the Miami Solid Organ Transplant Center here in South Florida. We have a lot of people that need transplants. We do a lot of things for a lot of people. What, Mr. Mendoza, do I always have to ask? There she is. And I want to thank Dr. Guerra so much for everything that she's done. You heard me say that the most important thing you can give somebody is peace of mind, and that's Dr. Guerra's job. She should have that on the back of her business card. Dr. Guerra, I see who's special to you because that's who's behind you. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want to tell you that I have a gift for you. A friend of mine, Ari, wrote a book about being a living donor. Miraculously, when Vivian went for her first labs, Ari was there in the waiting room for somebody else. He's from, I believe it's the Baltimore area. He's a rabbi. And I'd love to bring this by for you because we were talking earlier how it's a very big donation, a very big decision. Anybody who jumps up and says, I'm giving you a kidney is usually lying. And it's something that you have to consult with your family, with your clergy, with your everybody around you. And still, until the person is there giving the kidney under anesthesia, you really don't know for sure. Anybody who wants to see us meeting our living donor can Google Vivian Freed Kidney and Miami and see it. It's got thousands and thousands of hits. It's the most amazing moment of my entire life. So, Dr. Guerra, you work with Marcus Anderson. Tell us your relationship with Marcus and the folks in his department, and how people can help, not only help you with research, but also perhaps contribute to the fund that helps people that can't test living donors get those living donors tested.
Absolutely. So Marcus is part of our University of Miami team. I am a University of Miami doctor, and the Transplant Institute is actually under Jackson Memorial Hospital. Like I said, it's one of the largest public healthcare systems here in the United States. And so it's a partnership at the end of the day between the University of Miami and Jackson to form the Miami Transplant Institute. And we're very blessed to what I consider to be the best of both worlds, because as a result of that, we've been able to advance medicine substantially because of our academic endeavors, a lot of research that we do. The other part that's a big chunk of our work is actually education. So we're not only educating our community, but we're educating future doctors, residents, fellows, and even international doctors to learn to do what we do and actually spread the word throughout the world to make certain things happen. So it's a really beautiful process and a blessing to be involved between giving the gifts to so many individuals through the public healthcare system, but at the same time having the advantage of being able to do so much research and push innovation to the next level. And as a result of that, this past year and a half, we were able to build a robotic program, which actually coincides with the transplant program. Dr. Vivian, Dr. Brew, and myself have really pushed forward to bringing innovation to help improve quality of care for all our patients, including our donors. And as a result of that, our living donors actually go home. They get a robotic transplant procedure, and they go home in under 24 hours. So to take out a kidney and then to give a gift of life to somebody, and then to actually go home sometimes even that evening, and they came in that morning, that people find it hard to believe. Their quality of life has improved substantially. Some of my patients actually said they only took 2 Tylenols after the procedure, and they're feeling great. Within a couple of weeks, they go back to work, and actually they feel so blessed because they were able to give the gift of life to somebody else and still feel great. So actually, robotic procedure actually has enhanced substantially the quality of care for our living donors. And actually, we're excited to say we've done it for our transplant patients too. So now if you get a living donor transplant, many of them are able to get the transplant done robotically. So they go home in 2 days. Sometimes they want to go home the same day as the living donor, and we tell them, wait, we still have to get all these medications. So relax a little bit. But their outcomes are phenomenal. They have immediate graft function, and they are feeling like $1 million. And so they're usually walking around with their donors all around the floor. And they are very blessed because they received the gift of life. So we're actually saving and helping with innovation our patients to have a better quality of life. Definitely. So we're very excited. This last year and a half, we've actually pushed forward. So a lot of the funding that we do is actually to bring innovation and improvements to our patients. Our biggest research now that we're trying to do, again, trying to save patients while waiting on the list so they don't die waiting for a transplant, is with xenotransplantation. And we're actually we're the FDA approved transplant center here to make that happen. So
what kind of tumor? What is that?
Xenotransplantation, where we're actually getting organs from pigs and we're actually going to be transplanted. Kidney transplants are going to be the first one done. And we're hoping to achieve that goal probably in the next year to 2 years. So this would actually help save lives because, again, there's not enough organs out there to save all the individuals that have gone into organ failure.
You use that as a bridge, or is that a permanent solution?
No, that's permanent. So here at the MTI, we're very excited. So Marcus helps us significantly to raise funding and for a multitude of reasons, whether it's for research to push innovation, like I just described with the robotic the use of robotics to improve not only living donors but also potential recipients. But at the same time, with the use of science to push forward xenotransplantation. But like I said, we also use funding to educate. So we have different programs where different doctors are coming throughout the world to learn about what we do and to advance medicine and bring it back to their countries so we could help not thousands of people, but millions of people by doing so.
Thank you so much, Dr. Guerra, not only from my family, but from the other families that you've helped. I do have a couple of words that I'd like to give. I think that people need to understand that this is, I call it the medical industrial complex, even though it's staffed with people and faces and stuff like that. You need to sometimes push hard against the bureaucracy to make it happen. Never give up, always push. Realize that no matter how hard you're pushing, if you need to push harder, you still push because there's somebody there that wants to listen to you. You just haven't gotten to the right person. And, I can't thank you enough. Really, I mean, I've been sitting here. I should have brought probably more tissues than I brought here. But it's so meaningful what you've done for my family and for giving me my wife back.
I know.
I really appreciate you very much. Your whole team. Of course, I already said thank you to Dr. David Roth. Dr. Ciancio was the surgeon. That's him, right?
Yes, he's still here. They're all still here.
I guess does he use the robot yet, or?
He's starting to. Dr. Vivian, who's the director here, the surgical director for the Institute, is the one that has pushed through, and Dr. Ciancio is starting to learn from him as well. So it's a team that does it at the end of the day. Like I said, and Dr. Joe Tector is our lead for xenotransplantation. And so we're very blessed that we have so many physicians under the Institute. We have actually over 74 physicians, and we have over 400 staff members that make this happen on a daily basis. And I think you hit the nail on the coffin. It's not one person that does this. It's a whole entire team. And it's without that team, no one would have the chance to push and receive the gift of life. So I'm very blessed. I love what I do. I wouldn't change it for a single day of my life, but I'm even more blessed to have the family here at the MTI that I do that help make it happen for so many individuals in need.
All I can say is thank you and God bless you. I want to thank Marcus Anderson for helping to coordinate this. I want to thank, I'm not looking, so I can't remember off the top of my head, your assistant. Can we name her?
Caitlin Levy.
Put it all together and busted her fanny to make sure it happened. For you showing up and for the whole team and all the people that I mentioned and all the people that I didn't mention. People don't understand how important it is and how bleak the person feels before it happens. So I want to thank you so much, Dr. Guerra. If they want more information on the Transplant Center, how do they get a hold of you?
There's a general number, and they could request to either speak to me personally or to any of the physicians that are on staff on call. And there's coordinators available 24 hours a day, and they could call 305-355-5000. And for any living donor, there is a website that we have available. So you could go day or night, 365 days of the year, and you could donate to anybody. You don't even have to know someone to be able to donate and to be screened. And it's www.mtilivingdonor.org. If you go onto there, it's a great educational piece, and we do the medical screening, which is the first evaluation for the process to start to become a living donor.
You want to become a living donor, watch Google Vivian Freed Kidney and Miami, and see us meet the living donor that we had, which we found using Craigslist, not Instagram, not Twitter, not Facebook, not LinkedIn. I tried all of those. No, it was Craigslist. So you never know. Don't give up. If you want to be a living donor, don't let anybody stop you. Again, I want to thank Dr. Giselle Guerra. I want to thank Marcus Anderson and the whole team at the University of Miami who helped, who helped me help my wife save her life, because she's the one that did it. I was just there being her support system. Thank you so much, Dr. Guerra. If you could hold just a minute, we'll talk on the side in the green room when we end the show. Gosh, I'm such a
And actually, Jim, I have to say, the families are just as important as the patients. So Vivian owes you a lot. And I'm really thankful because without the families, many patients would not make it through. So we need to admire that as well.
Thank you for the words and the support that your system has given me on a personal level as well. I couldn't make it without you guys either. I'll be right back with you as soon as I wrap up the show. I am such a mess. What do I say at the end of the show, Mr. Mendoza? I say this is Jim Freed for Freed on Business. I want to thank our sponsors, Warren Henry and the University of Florida Center for Real Estate Studies. I love mentoring the kids from UF and being a part of that as well. We drop a new podcast every Wednesday at noon. So look for the new podcast. You go to freedombusiness.com. You see all the old podcasts. Remember, my personal brand is that I self-actualize by helping other people achieve their dreams and goals. I do that. God, I'm a mess. I do that by helping them solve their problems and bringing them peace of mind. No bigger example of that is than what we talked about today. Remember, whenever you call me, it's always all about you. I'm forgetting something else. Oh, this is the one that's the most important because it describes what I did and what my wife did. The person that wants to do something finds a way. This is you too, Dr. Guerra. The other person finds an excuse. Now go out there and make it happen. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America and Dr. Guerra and her team. Mr. Mendoza.